3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Nittany No Huddle podcast.
From Philadelphia to Los Angeles
And everywhere in between.
filmed at the Nittany No Huddle studio.
It's Jordo, Zach, and Coach Devin covering all things Penn State football all the time.
This is from 45 and it's blocked. Lions scoop it up. Brad Haley will score.
And here we go.
Once again, welcome to our Road to Glory series. We're bringing you a special report from one of our favorite players. Just kidding, it's the Nittany No Huddle podcast. We don't have a game this week, so we're just doing it live. We're going to go over our Heisman picks, top 10s, and our pick'ems for this week. So thanks for watching. We're going to start right off with our top 10s. Devin, why don't you go right into it and hit us with your top 10?
Yeah, so I did make a good bit of changes this week. Obviously, there were some weird games that happened. Georgia looked very suspect. Some other weird stuff went down. So I actually moved Alabama from 3 to 1. Alabama right now is my number 1 team. Ohio State stayed at number 2. Georgia fell to number 3. Again, 2 straight weeks where they've looked very, very suspect. So 1 week I can pass, 2 weeks in a row, especially against Missouri, who lost to Auburn. Got to move them down. Clemson, I moved up to number 4, all the way from number 9. I thought that was a really good win against NC State. I was shocked at how good NC State actually looked to me, even though it's the ACC. I thought NC State looked better than I really expected. So I moved Clemson up, which means that I moved Michigan down to 5. It doesn't really mean anything, but just moved them down a spot. They still obviously control their own fate more than some of these other teams. So if they go out and beat Ohio State and Penn State, they're going to move up. USC stayed at 6. Oklahoma State stayed at 7. I thought they looked pretty good. I just not good enough to move up. And then new to the top 10, Ole Miss just replaced Kentucky, exact same spot Kentucky was in. I literally flipped them in my top 25. That's all I did. I had them at 14 this week, and now I have Kentucky at 14. Then at 9, Penn State moved down a spot, or down 2 spots. They switched with Oklahoma State, excuse me. Not great against Northwestern, so they're down to 9. And then Tennessee, I think Tennessee's a fraud, but they're undefeated, so they're 10.
Yeah, I got no complaints with your logic there. One of our Instagram followers asked today if you were Joe Pa picking your top 10. So I'm not really sure what they meant by that. But...
I didn't see that comment, but the answer to Mr. Fan is no.
Oh, I told him yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Then yes. I retract my statement.
All right, Zach, are you ready for your top 10 or you want me to go?
It's up to you. I'm ready if you want me to go.
I'll go. So I took some time to self-reflect on my processes for determining the top 10. I found this new metric, strength of record. It's now my Bible. So that's what I've been going by. So you're going to see some rearrangements. And I actually went through and thought about what teams I could actually see beating each other. So that's kind of how I formulated my top 10. So 1, I didn't want to put them there, but Alabama, like realistically, if you think about the talent Alabama has brought in over the last, 4 years, people who are still on that team, they have maybe the second most talented roster next to Georgia, maybe first, depending on how you perceive that. So I have Alabama there until they lose, which hopefully will be this weekend, but not holding my breath on that one. Then I got Ohio State, even though I don't think Ohio State has really played anybody special yet. They're gonna get their test eventually, but they've just been dominating right now. So I have Ohio State. 3, I still have Michigan. They put out a pretty good showing this weekend, and when we play them in 2 weeks, we'll kind of get to see what Michigan really is, I guess, or maybe we're just frauds too. So who knows? 5, I'm keeping Penn State there. 4 is Georgia. I dropped them back because you can't not perform 2 weeks in a row. And realistically, I think any of those top 4 teams could beat each other on any given Saturday. But I think that's where the next couple teams take a step down. So Penn State, I have at 5. Could Penn State pull an upset against any of these teams? Yeah, I think so. But is it likely? Probably not. Just neutral field based on talent and coaching, probably not. 6, I have Clemson. I still don't buy into Clemson. I don't think Wake Forest and NC State are anything special. So I have them at 6, 7, USC. I think we saw maybe we didn't see what USC is, but we saw definitely what Utah was this last weekend. I mean, they absolutely destroyed Oregon State. So that's something USC couldn't do. So I would kind of factor that in a little bit. 8, I got Ole Miss. They're undefeated. They beat what I think is a maybe decent Kentucky team, but who really knows at this stage. 9, I got Oklahoma State, and then 10, maybe kind of my more wild side. I put UCLA up there because I honestly think UCLA could win the Pac-12. In all honesty, I lost a lot of money betting against them, so I gotta put some respect on the name. And Chip Kelly's there; he's been there before, so dominated the Pac-12 after USC went into sanctuary. I think that's what they mean when LA is a sanctuary city, right? That's all.
We're just gonna move on from that one.
Hey, our 100 viewers will appreciate that.
101.
Maybe
101. There you go. 101 viewers. All right, Zach, what do you got?
All
I think
right,
I think that's probably my most realistic top 10 so far.
without a doubt. It's not even close.
yeah. And
I had Alabama in it. So.
Yeah, you haven't
largely-
had Alabama in the top 10 all season.
Week 1, they were there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
bouncing around. So I think we largely have the same mix of teams, maybe just in some different orders, and we see some teams differently. But as much as I don't feel good about doing it, I kept Georgia at number 1. Just feel like everybody at the top there has either had some moments or some games where they've shown some flaws, or like Ohio State, they just haven't played anybody yet. So I just feel really not good about rewarding them. Although I've seen some people like Joel Klatt are saying right now, Ohio State is the team to beat, which I just think, I don't know how you can say that at this point right now. But in any event, I got Georgia 1, Bama 2, Ohio State 3. As you know, I'm a hater of the ACC, and I was down on Clemson early. I didn't even have them in the top 10. I got to pay some respect. They're number 4 now on my list. Back to back. What you got to, no matter what you think about the ACC, back to back quality wins at Wake Forest, and then home NC State. And they did it a little bit 2 different ways. They beat Wake Forest with their offense, didn't have the defense show up apparently to Winston-Salem for the Wake game. And then defensively, they looked pretty good against NC State, a 30-20 win. And I didn't even really feel as close as the score indicated. 5, I've got USC. If I went back and forth 5 and 6. I've got 5 USC, Michigan 6. USC kind of laid an egg a little bit in the Oregon State game, got lucky to get out of there with a win. We talked about that one. They kind of played with their food a little bit in the Arizona State game, but I feel like Michigan, the Maryland, we talked about the Maryland game, and the Iowa game was one where they pretty much went in there and dominated, but I don't know if we really know much about Iowa at this point. So I'm curious to see Michigan, same thing with Ohio State, when they finally play a team that can punch back a little bit. So that's the
When
top
will that
6.
be? Like when they play each other?
Maybe Penn State, we'll see. I don't know. I have the top 6, and I think there's kind of I think a lot of people have sort of that's like the first tier maybe, and then there's a start of a second tier. I've got Oklahoma State at 7. I was really impressed with the win at Baylor, the revenge game from last year's Big 12 championship game. That was, I think, going into Baylor and winning in the manner that they did was a pretty good win, I think. So I think we know a little bit more about Oklahoma State. I've got Ole Miss at 8, which I think is right about where you guys have them. Pretty good gritty win against Kentucky. It was at home, and Kentucky had chances to win that game for sure. I think Kentucky's pretty good too. I suspect they'll probably lose to Georgia, and maybe their season's probably going to come down to the Tennessee game. One of those 2 teams, whoever wins that game gets to play second fiddle to Georgia in the SEC East and maybe make a New Year's Six bowl. But I've got Ole Miss 8. I've got Tennessee. Speaking of Tennessee, I don't feel great about them. I think defensively they've got some problems. They made Florida's quarterback look awesome, and I think he's not. And then I've got Penn State 10. Sort of feel the same way about Penn State that I do Tennessee, that I feel like based on the snapshot in time that we're looking at right now, based on resumes, those teams deserve to be 9 and 10, but I don't really, you could very easily convince me that they're not the 9th and 10th 10th best teams in the country.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. I think we'll get to see over the next 2 weeks for sure, kind of what teams start to become and what they really are. But right now, it's just kind of madness. Like, honestly, if I had to bet who was going to win the national championship this year, I don't think I would put a bet because it could literally be anybody. It could be somebody who's not even ranked right now, to be honest.
I wouldn't go that far. Let me ask you this.
Well, he doesn't usually rank Alabama. So,
Well, do you mean like AP top 25 or your rankings?
AP top 25.
Well, let me ask you this: if you were offered free money, whatever amount, and the bet was Georgia, Bama, and Ohio State were the field,
I mean, you have to
who are you taking?
You have to take Georgia, Bama, or Ohio State.
Yeah, I think those three are probably, until we see more. Maybe Clemson starts to play themselves into the mix there. I mean, part of it is there's some teams that just we don't have enough data points yet. Michigan's one where I think I love Michigan's offensive line. I think they have as good an offensive line as anybody in the country. Defensively, it looks like they've done a decent job replacing the 2 first-round defensive ends from last year. But until we see them, Penn State, Ohio State, I honestly don't even know I don't know if they have anybody else on the schedule that's going to give them a scare. But you could see Michigan creep into that category of they could make the playoff and win a game or two.
Even a 1-loss Michigan could possibly be there, depending on how things shake out.
Yeah, we could get into that. I'm sure we could get into some really lengthy playoff discussions, but I feel very confident because of, unfortunately for the Big 12, because of how good that conference is right now and because of how deep it is, which is funny to say because Oklahoma is apparently terrible. But I think there's a lot of good teams in that conference. You look at Oklahoma State's schedule, they're probably in the driver's seat. They're still undefeated. They still got to play TCU. They still got to play Oklahoma. They still got to play Texas. They've got to play Kansas State. They've got to play Iowa State, who always gives them fits. I mean, that's a tough conference this year. If Oklahoma State or Kansas or TCU, if one of those teams, I'll put it this way, if one of those teams gets through that slate unbeaten, they should be number 1.
They won't be though. But
look at Ohio State's schedule. Basically, right now, if you're a Buckeye fan, win the Penn State game in State College and beat Michigan at home in the last week of the season. The rest of it's exhibition.
Yeah. And then whoever comes from the West, Illinois, probably.
They should probably just cancel the Big Ten title game this year.
Just give it to the
Big Ten. Yeah. Just the top 2 teams in the East play each other again.
Yeah, so we can get 3 matchups. So we'll move on. We'll hit the. Do you want to do pick'ems next, or you want to do Heisman while we're talking about top 10 teams?
Whatever you think is best.
We'll do Heisman. So I think probably unanimously, and I could be wrong on this. You guys can correct me if I'm not correct. I think probably CJ Stroud is probably the top pick right now for Heisman, just based off the pure volume he's putting up. I mean, he's looked pretty good other than Notre Dame.
Yeah, I have him 1. I don't like it, but
I'd agree.
I mean, who else are you gonna put there? I'm not putting Caleb Williams there. I'm not.
No,
I don't think.
I think there's.
Bryce Young's good, but I think he may be hurt right now, so I think that's really gonna, not bow well. And he didn't play very well against Texas, to be honest. He got bailed out by a couple missed holding calls late in the game.
I think there's a couple guys that are really flying under the radar. I'm interested to see who you guys have beyond CJ Stroud. But
so this is maybe not maybe they're not my favorite right now, but somebody who I think could creep up there is Jalen Daniels from Kansas. I mean, he's looked all but a pro quarterback right now. Honestly, he looks really good. Just the way he's throwing the ball and making good decisions, picking up yards when he needs to with his legs. He looks like the Heisman candidate.
I mean, he's
pick under the radar.
68% completion percentage, almost 1,000 yards in 5 games, which isn't a ton of yards, but they're a run-based team. 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's only been sacked twice. And then get this, for a quarterback, he's got 46 carries for 329 yards. It's an average of 7 yards a pop for 5 touchdowns. So he's accounted for 16 touchdowns to 1 interception and only two sacks with a 68% completion percentage. So I think you're fooling yourself if you don't think he's at least in the mix. And maybe Kansas drops off and he kind of slows down, but
yeah, I think that's
gotta
what it
be in
comes
the
down
mix.
to. Like right now, he's definitely in the mix. I just don't know if Kansas can win enough games to where they're not going to, I mean, regardless of how good his numbers are, if Kansas it goes 8-4,
Yeah.
they're not going to give him the Heisman. So
Yeah.
I agree. He's had a really great start to his season. I hope he keeps it up. I mean, I'm all for it. Somebody random winning the Heisman, that'd be cool. But I just don't think he'll get it done.
Yeah, I agree. What do you guys let me put it this way, as far as not having a quarterback win it, do you think we see that this year, or do you think it's going to be a quarterback race like usual?
So I think it'll probably be a quarterback like usual, just because that's the way it's going. And also because there aren't most of the leading rushers in the country aren't really big name guys at the moment. So like one guy I have on my list at the
Blake
moment
Corum?
is Chase Brown from
Ah.
Illinois, my super dog from last
Oh my
week.
God, Illinois again.
Enough with Illinois.
So Chase Brown is leading the country in rushing yards, 733 yards through 5 games. 6.1. He's averaging 6.1 per carry. He only has 4 touchdowns, which is probably holding him back a little bit. Blake Corum is another one. If you're looking at running backs, I think that's another one. And then the third name that I think from a running back standpoint that everybody in America needs to know about is Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. He's got 638 rushing yards, and he's a weapon out of the backfield in the passing game too. And again, it's sort of like Jalen Daniels with Kansas. If Kansas State falls by the wayside a little bit, he's probably a name you're not going to hear anything about. But if they get hot and stay hot and kind of play themselves into the playoff mix, that he's definitely, I think he's a name that could be in the mix. And actually, their quarterback Adrian
I
Martinez.
was going to say, I think he's like the second favorite.
The problem is
because Adrian Martinez is playing really well right now.
it could be one of those scenarios where the two of them both have really good years and then they just sort of kind of draw off of each other and neither one gets the love. But the other name, if I can just mention, then we'll kick it to Devin, is don't sleep on Max Duggan, quarterback from TCU. He has a 75% completion percentage so far through 4 games, 997 yards. So he's averaging 250 yards a game, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and he's rushed for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. He leads college football right now in passer rating. If you're a believer in that stat, just having a really, really good year. And if you watched any of the Oklahoma TCU game, and again, apparently Oklahoma stinks, but he and that TCU offense looked really good. It looked like they could have scored 80 if they would have kept their foot on the gas.
Yeah, that wasn't very Christian-like, but I will say TCU has some really awesome jersey schemes too, if you're into that. And if statistics play any part in Heisman decisions, you're pretty likely to win a Heisman if you just throw up huge numbers in the Big 12. So what'd you say?
I said if you have a good uniform. I thought that's where that conversation was going. You're pretty likely to win the Heisman if you look good, at least.
Speaking of quarterbacks looking good, did you guys see Bo Nix had like an 85-yard run this weekend?
No, but I keep seeing him on these Heisman lists.
He's turning it around.
He's having a really good season. I mean, he really is.
I mean, well,
maybe Auburn was just that bad.
I think they should think twice about, just berating a guy. Yeah, I mean, he's still terrible in prime time. So, but hey.
Anyways. One final name, if we're talking quarterbacks with really gaudy stats at the moment on teams that are ranked, and this team's actually undefeated. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA, 75% completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. And he gives you a lot in the running game too. That's another guy that, they have a huge game. They have a huge game this week. Actually, it's going to be one of the ones that we cover. If he can parlay a big game win over Utah, that's a name. That's a guy that I think you're going to see climb up the Heisman odds lists as well.
Put all those stats together, and that's probably more than the amount of people who have watched UCLA play this year, which is kind of surprised.
They have one fan for every passing yard he throws.
Yeah. Most UCLA fans probably don't even know his name. But yeah, Devin, you got anything else you want to add to the Heisman hype?
Yeah, one more name that I think will the way this team is playing right now and the schedule in front of them, I think a name to really watch out for is DJ Uelay. He's putting up really good, solid numbers. He's putting up really good, solid numbers for Clemson. I don't see a loss on their schedule until they choke. So for stats, like Zach's been saying all these stats. So he's completing 65% of his passes, over 1,200 yards already. Also is 11-1 his touchdown to interception ratio. And he has 242 rushing yards and 3 scores on the ground. These last 2 games against ranked teams, he's completing 68% of his passes, 6 touchdowns, no picks. He's going to work his way up there if they keep winning. And then the only other name, obviously, this all again hinges on how good this team is Hendon Hooker, the quarterback from Tennessee. I didn't pull up his stats because I don't think he'll ultimately get there. I think really it comes down to it's Stroud, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young will work his way up there, and Uelay. But I mean, I would love to see Blake Corum win just because I'm kind of tired of running backs or of quarterbacks winning, and I would love to see a running back win. I think it'd be cool. It's just not how the game voice crack. It's not how the game is right now. So it's going to be a quarterback. It's just a matter of whichever one of those 4 teams kind of run the table.
Yeah, you're definitely all over it in terms of like, unfortunately, every year, you're Stroud, Bryce Young, Ucla, they're going to be on teams that go 12-0.
How you say it.
However you say it. And every year, like you look around and there'll be guys that have they'll have seasons that statistically are as good or better.
Right.
And you just don't hear about them because unfortunately the media is not paying attention to Kansas or Kansas State or whoever.
Another name this year, Sam Hartman. I mean,
Sam Hartman's having
we talked about
year,
him.
Yeah.
His numbers are outstanding. Wake's just not going to be good enough. They're going to lose 2 or 3 games, but his numbers are just as good as any of those other quarterbacks we've mentioned.
Yeah,
I feel like you got to go at least 10-2, or you got to get to like 10 wins or something before there's like a sort of a hidden ceiling that if your team's not good enough, they punish you, which is, to me, it should be the opposite.
Almost the opposite. Yeah, I agree.
The quarterbacks that have lesser teams and carry them to 8 or 9 wins when they're probably like not even 500 without that player, that's way more impressive than Bryce Young leading Alabama to 12-0, because
I agree.
the third stringer on that team could possibly do that. But it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We got some good games this week. Is the Red River shootout this week as well?
Who cares?
I'm honestly asking. Is it?
It is. Yeah,
it
is.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I changed my background. So.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So, Zach, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Yep. We'll start.
What's our standings? Do you have our standings, Zach? You want to inform the people?
I
mean, I have it. If you don't, I just
go ahead. Yeah.
Be in charge of this. So.
Sorry, I pick the games for us. You tell us what the standings are.
So after last week, I am still in last place. However, I did make a little indent on Jordan. I picked up 2 games on Jordo over there. So I'm now 11-16. Jordan is 13-14. So still hovering right around that 500 mark. And Zach not only is in the lead, but also had the best week of anyone and picked up another game on all of us. So he is now 16-11. Which isn't very good, if I'm being completely honest.
In our defense, for those watching and thinking, man, these guys are like the leaders, like barely above 500. We're not doing the Georgia versus Missouri, which ended up being a close game, or Michigan versus Indiana. And for instance, this week we've got 8 games, and the line on 7 of the 8 games is 3.5 points or less. So I think being around 500 is actually not bad, because I think we're mostly picking games that are almost toss-ups for the most part. Every once in a while we'll have one with a bigger spread, but like this week, I think we've got 8 games that could all be really, really 8 games that I think could potentially be coin flips.
if I
Coin
don't
flips is a good
bet-
way to describe it because they're not going to be good necessarily.
if I don't
The winner could be either team, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'll put it that way.
if Baylor doesn't screw me over 3 times this season, I'm above 500. Just
They're not on the list this week, so you got a shot.
All right.
What other
Because
T-shirts do
they
you
wore those
wear?
ugly mustard uniforms. If I had known that, I wouldn't have picked them.
All right, first game we got is number 8 Tennessee on the road in Death Valley at number 25 LSU.
It's a tough one.
This
'cause
is they're all tough.
this
They're all
week.
going to be tough.
I really think Tennessee sucks, but I think LSU might suck a little more. I think I'm gonna go with Tennessee just because you can't play Auburn that close and be respectable. Like, to be honest, that's my opinion. So I'm gonna take Tennessee.
Is it me? What order are
Go
we
for
going?
it. We'll
Okay.
mix it up.
I'm also going to take Tennessee, even though I really want to take LSU. Man, that Auburn game was atrocious.
They should have lost that game.
They should have lost
They
that
should have
game,
absolutely
and
lost that
it was bad. It was like watching Penn State Northwestern bad.
Yeah.
So I'll take Tennessee.
If
Yeah,
Auburn doesn't throw that pick in the red zone, like that
Yeah.
game's over.
Terrible.
They're up like 21-0, or actually it would have been more than that, 25-0 or something.
Completely agree. You guys are all over it. I'm 100% on board with everything you said. I'm picking LSU.
Nice.
Okay, taking the Coach Devin strategy.
Yeah.
Rocky
Well, I just
Top.
think it's tough to win at LSU even when
Yeah,
they're
it is.
not like they're elite. So I think Tennessee, and I think Tennessee can go in there and play well and probably win handily. But I also think they could go in there and really struggle, and LSU could just kind of muck it up. And so I'm going LSU. Next one, another second game we have, which is 2 ranked teams. And this is game day actually. Number 17 TCU at number 19 Kansas.
Game day's not at the Red River.
No, it's terrible this year.
Yeah, but it's like the Red River. Like it's the Texas Fair. Like, you gotta be there.
They're not there. I'll start this one off since I think I went last on the last one. I love the Kansas story. I'm all about it. But I'm going TCU here.
I love it. I'll go second. I'm going TCU. Like, after last week, you're out of your damn mind if you don't think I'm taking TCU.
And I am going to go with who do I want to go with? I'm going to go with Kansas. Let's go. Kansas.
Kansas to the Final Four?
To the Final Four. I'm riding them. I picked Coach K to upset them 2 weeks ago, or Coach Shire replacing Coach K 2 weeks ago. I thought their bigs would be better. They're just not. Kansas's guard play is so good. They just get it up and down the court in a hurry. They're legit. They're going to the Final Four. Rock Chalk Jayhawk or Rocky Top J Top. However you said it, Jordan, that week.
I don't even know if I could repeat how I said it, to be honest.
I don't know who you guys just picked. Can you tell me again? Because I was looking for that graphic.
Oh, we both picked TCU.
We both went TCU.
Perfect. Okay, good.
All right, we'll move on. Next, we got 11 Utah at 18 UCLA. So, Zach, we'll let you go first. What do you think?
So I'm a big Utah guy. I think they obviously
You have 2 wives?
One of them's
Utah
your
football.
sister.
I think they definitely crapped the bed in week 1 against a Florida team that's all of a sudden looking less and less impressive. But I think Utah is a really solid fundamental team. UCLA looked good last week, but I just think there's a chance that they can run the table in the Pac-12. I'm going Utah.
Yeah, so Chip Kelly has looked phenomenal. I got burned on not picking UCLA last week. So I'm going to double down and we're going with the Utah Utes. I think their week 1 loss, I'll give them a write-off on it because I can't imagine going from Salt Lake City elevation all the way down into that disgusting swamp that is Gainesville, playing in that humidity. Like, yeah, I don't blame them. They probably came away feeling like they needed a shower after that one. So I'm taking Utah. I'm giving them a bye on the first week. I think they're a really good team. I think this game might determine who wins the Pac-12, to be honest.
And I also agree that Utah is looking really, really good the last couple weeks. And for that reason, I'm going to
I'm going
take
UCLA.
UCLA.
I knew it.
Obviously, they have a huge home field advantage because there's nobody there, and nobody knows what it's like, what it feels like to play in silence more than UCLA. So they're used to it. I'll take UCLA in the quiet Rose Bowl.
They're probably still thinking it's COVID.
They still have precautions. It's Los Angeles. They probably do.
Yeah, that's true. I was getting in a argument online because somebody
Shocking.
claimed,
Shocker.
yeah, shocker. Somebody claimed that the Rose Bowl, like they're like, oh, it just looks empty because like they have 100,000 plus seats there. I was like, yeah, maybe back in 1980 they did, but they definitely do not now. And with the tarps, I looked it up.
They cover, yeah. They cover
94,000 is the seating capacity for the Rose Bowl currently. Even the national title games only had like 95, 96. So they haven't had 100,000 since the 80s.
What do they have for the Clash?
I don't know what they had for the Clash.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those tarps that they put up to cover like they have to cover at least like 10,000 seats or
Yeah,
something.
no, more than that. So
20, I don't
with
know.
the tarps, it's 64,000. So they cover 30,000 seats with the tarps.
Wow.
And I looked up
the
that
Bryce Jordan Center.
Yeah, right. That big game they had last week, the attendance was 50,000, like 240.
But that was a lie though, because it was really like 20,000 people.
That's what I said. And
If
like,
those photos were to be
all
believed.
these West Coast twinks were giving me some hell. So, all right, let's move on. Speaking of more Mormon teams, we got BYU at Notre Dame. So, a little religious battle here. I guess I'll go first. It's at Notre Dame. Touchdown, Jesus. I think I'm going to stick with BYU. I can't believe Notre Dame's favored in this, to be honest. I have got burned by BYU once this year, but I mean, I think Notre Dame just really sucks this year, to be honest. So, and I don't think they're very well coached. I know all the players and sponsors and everybody was hyping up, the new coach coming into Notre Dame. But I think he's just a little bit out of his element. And I'm not saying he's not going to be a good coach for Notre Dame, but I don't think they're what they were expecting him to be this year. So I'm going BYU.
So I said it 2 minutes ago. I'm big on Utah. So I'll stick with another Utah team. I'm going BYU here. I think Jordan referenced it. It's a 3.5 point game, which is essentially just a coin flip. I mean, you take the home field advantage out of it, and it's probably a straight up pick 'em game. I think BYU, I think they're going to fly under the radar here for a little bit. They got spanked by Oregon pretty badly, but they had that really nice win against Baylor. They have a game against Arkansas coming up. If they get hot here, beat Notre Dame, beat Arkansas, they're probably the group of 5 / independent team that will find their way into a New Year's Six bowl. So I'm going BYU.
I agree with you guys that I'm shocked that Notre Dame is favored in this game. But if Notre Dame's going to do anything this year, they have to win this game. It's literally a must-win game for them, I think. So I'm going to take Notre Dame. I hate Notre Dame more than any team in college football, more than Alabama, more than Ohio State, but it's close. But I'm going to take them, especially because I could get a 2-for-1 again.
Yeah, all about the
Fair
back
enough.
picks today.
And in their defense, they did kind of right the ship last week at North Carolina.
Who's
Not a great win, but
okay.
like things could have really. They lose that game, and then all of a sudden BYU. I mean, they could have been staring down the barrel of like 1-4.
Yeah, exactly. All right, moving on. We got number 20 K-State at Iowa State. I think this is going to be a really great game. I think Kansas State is favored in this one, but
-2.
yeah, we'll let the old coach Devin go first. I feel like he's been taking advantage of us picking.
I know. I was waiting for you to tell me to go first, and then you just were like, "I'm going to go first. I'm going to go first." So I just didn't say anything. I'll take K-State in this one. I want to believe that they're for real, but now I'm starting to think Oklahoma is just god awful. So I don't know.
Oh,
But I don't think Iowa State's that good. So I'm going to take K-State, I think.
All right, Devin or Zach, what do you think?
I want to believe in K-State too. I think they're both Kansas schools are. It would be really cool to see them have a big year. I've also been burned by Iowa State, and I'm going back to the well. I think Iowa State is solid. They played Kansas really tough. Probably should have won that game actually. played Baylor really tough at home a couple weeks ago. K-State, it's easy to forget after that Oklahoma win. They scored 10 points against Tulane. So maybe they're just inconsistent. I don't know. I think this is pretty much a toss-up game because I do think Iowa State's tough. And just being at home, I'm going to go Iowa State.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is going to be a really tough game, but I think I'm just going to keep riding the hot hand, K-State. Iowa State's decent, but I just haven't seen enough from them. So I'm going to go with K-State. All right, what's our next game, Zach?
Next game, we've got Florida State at number 14, North Carolina State.
All right. Do you want to pick first this time?
I'll go first. I think North Carolina State wins. I think they bounce back from the Clemson loss. They go home. Florida State's on the road after a pretty tough loss to Wake Forest. I thought Wake Forest was going to be the team that didn't show up last week after that demoralizing loss to Clemson. And they went on the road to what I think is a pretty solid Florida State team, maybe not elite, but that told me a lot about Wake. And I think it also told me something about Florida State. So I'm going NC State here.
Same. I got NC State. I actually have them big. I think they blow them out.
Blow them out?
Yep, by 20. I think they're ready. They're going to be mad about losing at Clemson.
I'm taking Florida State. Free you. We're doing it again. I think Florida State could possibly. They're still undefeated, right? Or no? Did they lose last week?
They lost to Wake last week.
Oh yeah.
But if anything, they're the team that still has the best chance in the ACC Coastal Division, the Clemson division, because they don't have the Clemson loss. So NC State and Wake, the other challengers, have already lost to Clemson. So they're essentially like 2 games back once you figure in the tiebreaker. Florida State, if they beat NC State, they still have the Clemson game on the horizon. They kind of still control their own destiny.
Yeah. I think I just don't like NC State, to be honest.
And I forgot, actually, Syracuse, talking about that division.
Yeah,
Syracuse is still undefeated. So Clemson isn't out of the woods yet, but they're definitely far and away the odds-on favorite to come out of that division. And then
they play
the other half of the ACC is horrible. So it's kind of like the Big Ten this year. You've got Clemson and then 3, maybe 4 solid teams after Clemson, and then the other half of the division is just horrible.
Yeah, speaking of horrible Big Ten teams, we got Iowa at Illinois. I already know what Zach's picking. He's taking Illinois by 1 million, probably.
Bielema must feeling his oats right now, man. He just went into Madison and beat him down so bad that they fired their coach. That's how bad the beatdown was.
Paul Christ, it's Jason Bourne. That was a bad joke, but I thought it was funny. I'm kind of surprised they I mean, I guess if you lose to Illinois, you either get fired or get a 10-year, $80 million extension. So it's the only 2 options.
We could probably devote a whole podcast to like the craziness that was Paul Christ getting fired and looking at his record and in comparison to James Franklin. And
who they going to get? Brett Bielema.
And then like look at that situation compared to Michigan State, who just gave, we complain about Franklin's contract.
Oh yeah.
Michigan State gave Tucker a 10-year, $90 million contract on the basis of 1 good season where his roster was just all transfer portal kids. And we'll see.
Yeah.
Not looking good this year.
It looks really bad for them, to be honest.
They may not make a bowl because they still haven't played Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State yet, and they already have 3 losses.
I wonder what the buyout is on that.
Hopefully,
probably
I think
too much for Michigan State to afford to be.
I think he probably has the same agent as Franklin, so the buyout is probably like everything for the school and nothing for him to get out of it.
It's all the players' firstborn children. But as far as Illinois, Iowa, I'm going with Illinois. I think Iowa sucks, and I hate Iowa, to be honest. So I'm going Illinois.
It's funny that you say that Iowa sucks because I say Illinois sucks. So I'm going to go with Iowa. I'm going to go with Iowa taking control here. Iowa also does suck. I totally agree with you, but I'm just so sick of Zach talking about Illinois that please, for the love of God, please lose this game
so we can stop talking.
so that they're
Just
out of it.
Just get ready for next week, because once they beat Iowa,
Who do they even
driver's
play?
seat.
You know.
Then they play Minnesota next week, and once they
Oh,
beat
they're losing that
Minnesota,
one too,
you
and
can
that one.
pencil them in. They're going to Indianapolis.
No, they're losing this week because this way Illinois sucks.
I saw the over under somewhere. I forget where it was at, but the over under in this game was like 35.
12.
So Illinois is winning 35-0 or
First
what?
team to score wins.
That would be great. Let's just do that so that we don't have to watch this game.
I'm not gonna watch it anyways.
I mean, neither. Zach will.
I'm gonna be like an AP poll voter and just not watch the games.
Oh,
Love it.
Boom.
Ooh.
roasted. All right. Speaking of games, I'm definitely not gonna watch Purdue at Maryland. Purdue is not favored. Maryland is favored. So
It's another game with a 3-point spread, which
looking
is
terrible. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it's another game with a 3-point spread where that basically tells me it's pretty much a toss up, and they're giving Maryland a couple points for being the home team. Same thing with Iowa, Illinois, a 3-point spread for Illinois. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Maryland. Purdue, if you follow Purdue, they beat teams they shouldn't. They lose to teams they shouldn't. They have a huge road win at Minnesota, and then they go and lose to Maryland. It's just I can see it happening. I think Maryland has actually been pretty solid this year. I'm going Maryland.
You're going Maryland. You really believe in the baby Tua?
He's fighting for his brother's life out here.
that was funnier than it probably should have been to me.
It's all right. We don't have any NFL PAs on the podcast. So.
Wait, Zach, you picked Maryland?
I'm going Maryland there.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I up?
You're up.
All right. I'm going to go with Purdue because Maryland's student section will not be there. Penn State's not playing them, so they can't fill their student section. Purdue sucks. That looks like the Steelers mascot. I'm going to go Purdue because I want Purdue to keep winning so that it makes Penn State look better. And Maryland sucks. Always have, always will.
I got Drew Brees taking Purdue. Boilermakers.
Drew Brees.
I don't trust Maryland. Maryland, it's Maryland.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 for 1 for Zach probably, but
You guys, there could be some major movement in the standings.
And by major movement, you mean you taking a bigger lead.
actually an enormous lead here.
Hey, I mean, that's the beauty. The beauty of these 8 games, with all 7 of the 8 having a 3-point line and the other one being 6.5. I look at the 8 teams that I circled, and I could easily see getting all 8 of them wrong. That's how, to Devin's point, maybe not good the games are, but that's how close I think the teams are in a lot of these big games. Obviously, we didn't, like we said earlier, Michigan at Indiana. I don't think that's going to be a game. Georgia at home versus Auburn. That could get ugly. I mean, so I like picking the games where it really could go either way.
I agree. Who's up for Super Dogs?
I don't have a super dog this week.
Loser.
You guys can take charge of that one.
All right, loser.
All right, let me look someone up then.
All right, I'll go first. Give Jordan some time. I'm going pretty far off the radar here. I am taking a Friday night game out in the Mountain West. UNLV is getting 7 points on the road at San Jose State. And like everything else we seem to be talking about, we base everything off of how bad Auburn is. So San Jose State played Auburn, kind of close, didn't beat them. I'm going UNLV +7. Super dog, going to pull off the victory.
All right. I like it. I'm also going to go pretty far off the map. Some game that I'm definitely not going to watch, but I'm going to do it as my super dog anyways. I'm going to take UTEP, the Fighting Miners, over Louisiana Tech. UTEP's getting 3 points in this game. I mean, just look at that helmet. I can't imagine a more beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you got.
That's a TikTok reference. I'm Mr. TikTok over here. Sorry. So
I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to take. I don't like any of these games.
Just take your super dog as Purdue because you picked them to beat Maryland.
No, I don't.
I'm just saying.
You could ride the Hogs again, Jordan. They're plus 9.5 at Mississippi State.
I hate them.
Missouri's getting 11 points at Florida.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of good dogs this week. I feel like a super dog has to be like an actual dog. Can't be like 3.5 points.
Oh, sorry, I cheated.
I'm taking Texas Tech. That's my super dog. Where's Pistol Pete? Let me get him up. I was trying to find a better Heisman thing for our podcast, but who'd you take, Zach?
UNLV running Rebs.
The running Rebs.
Texas Tech's not a bad one. I mean, Oklahoma State had a big week, obviously last week, but Texas Tech has been good. I mean, they beat Texas. They've looked pretty competent.
Yeah, I mean, what is Texas though? What's the spread in that game actually?
Texas is favored by 7.
What's the over under? Because I feel like they always score a bajillion.
They do score a ton of points. The over under in the Texas Oklahoma game is 64.5. Which, I mean, hell, the way Oklahoma's defense has been, Texas could maybe score that all by themselves
at halftime.
Yeah, that's probably a game to hammer the over.
No, I went with the Red Raiders. This might be my favorite mascot. We're going all mascot team here.
This podcast is off the rails. I love it.
I really didn't feel like recording today, to be honest. But now that I'm in it. So now,
yeah.
Oh, is Drew Allery your Heisman pick?
I assume that he's going to win the Heisman. Sean Clifford's going to get benched this week when they don't play anybody. So his stats this week are going to look really bad.
He's going to lose the bye week.
Yeah.
He's going to get hurt.
Going to throw 5 picks to the practice squad.
No, that would be our running backs.
Did you see our new 4th string running back?
Devin Ford?
No, he's going.
Oh.
This guy's like 5'6". He's like your size.
Oh. Good one. You know for a fact I'm 69 inches tall. Do the math.
Do I know that for a fact?
Do the math.
I'll find him.
But yeah, shout out to our 100
Tank Smith. His name is Tank Smith. 5'6", 235.
Holy.
He is our 4th string running back going into the bye week.
Fullback?
Can we teach that kid how to play fullback?
I know. Why not?
Maybe that's why they brought him on.
Tank Smith. What a name, too.
I mean, I feel like you have to be over 230 pounds if your name's Tank.
I just saw that today.
Wow. Oh, that's all good stuff. You guys got anything else?
Nah.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching the Nittany No Huddle podcast.
Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Podcasts are posted weekly on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss one of our new shows.